Here's another species that's on your week 3 list. It's this vine growing along the ground. This is Virginia creeper. So Virginia creeper is a woody vine. It has leaves typically in groups of 5, like this one. So unlike the poison ivy, which has the leaves growing in groups of 3, Virginia creeper has groups of 5. It's always kind of coarsely serrated, so it has coarse teeth around the margins of these leaves. And these are growing on the ground, but they will quite often, in fact most frequently, you'll see them growing up the sides of trees. Right, these are starting to turn color, so they turn a really brilliant red later in the fall. It's one that is useful to learn and to distinguish from poison ivy, so you know which one to avoid and which one you don't have to be as worried about if you're out in the woods and leaning up against trees or walking through things. So Virginia creeper, pretty common in our eastern forest. It does have some berries. I don't see any on any of these plants, but it does have berries in the fall that some wildlife species will eat. But really distinctive with the 5. This one even has a 6th leaf growing out. That's weird. I've never noticed that before. Typically we think of it as having 5 leaflets in a whorl, so they're all coming off of the same node, right? All of the leaflets are kind of growing off that node in a whorl. 5 is the standard. Some of these we see have 4 or 3. That's because they've been chewed by insects or whatever. This 6th one is just a real anomaly. I don't think I've ever seen that, so maybe that's like a 4-leaf clover or something. We just got lucky. So Virginia creeper, a common woody vine in our eastern forest, turns pretty brilliant shade of crimson in the fall. And here's some poison ivy growing right in amongst it. So that is why we learn both of these species, so you can tell them apart. So this is the poison ivy. It has the leaves in the group of 3. Has kind of notched or toothed leaves. Not as sharply toothed as a Virginia creeper. Right, that is clearly distinct teeth. These are kind of they're present, but they're not as distinctively toothed as the creeper. And then there's more poison ivy growing in here amongst it. So that is one of the drawbacks with the Virginia creeper around here, is it often grows coincident with poison ivy. And so you got to be careful when you're walking through or handling the materials. Make sure that you know what you're grabbing, if you're grabbing one, to identify it. And these poison ivy don't have the same shininess. Normally when they're growing in the middle of the growing season, the upper leaves will be shiny, and that's kind of a distinctive characteristic. But as the leaves get older, and now we're in the fall, they're starting to lose their pigment. They become a little bit duller and even a little bit less easy to detect. So poison ivy, 3 leaves, kind of indistinctly toothed or irregularly notched instead of toothed. It's almost like a notching. And Virginia creeper, typically leaves that come in a whorl of 5, where they're all coming from the same node and clearly distinctly toothed.